Hello everyone, this is Jimmy Cultist back again with another exploration game video. How to make an exploration game or point and click or whatever you want to call it. Today we're going to be talking about an inventory system, which technically we've already done an inventory system, but that was a different subject, and we are doing it a little bit different this time. It's not quite the same way. See, in a point-and-click game, the inventory is usually set up slightly differently. And I will be demonstrating the difference. I'm gonna go ahead and stamp out a little brick. And a little microchip. We're also going to want a light to illuminate our space. How you choose to make the inventory look is kind of your own personal choice. I'm just going to make it sort of a brown background. Maybe turn down the brightness a bit, it doesn't have to be that bright. Also, I almost want to sharpen the edges of this. Make it more like that. Don't know why. Somehow it seems more appealing to me. Let's see how this would look in action. You're going to want this camera to be as straight as possible. Alright, I've changed my mind. We'll do something more blurry. And pull the camera out a bit. And we're also going to want to set the inventory to cut. For the simple reason that transitioning to this thing is probably going to be a little bit, you know, you're going to want to have it quick, otherwise you're going to go through walls and things, and that looks very unprofessional, does it not? Alright, cut. We're in a good position now. Next, we're going to create a simple, what is the word? Interface. Add a few more G's. A few more. Want a nice balanced brick. I think that will do. And we're going to turn on the borders. And set it to sort order of 0. Well, maybe we'll leave it on 1 just in case we want to add some kind of text background. Might even put it on 2. But we're just going to create a little box up here. And another little box over here. Let's kind of center them so that we can get this, you know. You want to go for symmetry in games. It's not always 100% necessary, but I highly advise symmetry when it comes to making UI and such. It's just something that humans find naturally pleasing to the eye. And we could have more blocks than this. But for now, I'm going to be using, you know, 3. And I'm going to show you a little system which can help you make more than 10 inputs in a selector. You know, if you've been messing around with these things, you're like, well, what happens if I want to have more items than 10? You know, like what if I wanted to have a whole ton? Well, I'm going to show you how to make more. To kind of create your own selector that goes beyond the usual Call of Duty, so to speak. And for that, we're going to need a counter and a timeline. Set it to sustain, take the count progress, and stick it in this little thing here, which is called a playhead. Then we're going to take out a little microchip, which is going to be our controller mount for our controller sensor, that is. Controller sensor which will be set to remote controllable. We're going to go ahead and delete these inputs here. Is there an active possessed? I don't know if that really counts. But we're just going to go ahead and use a selector for this part because it's pretty simple. Stick it in the camera. Potentially you could also just stick the camera on here. That way the camera's not active unless you're looking at this thing. And we're also going to want a little text box to put all of our lovely text in. The rest of it can remain off. I don't really think it's actually important to change that. We'll see how this goes. Put this in there. Well, let's leave it open actually, because I want to demonstrate something. Alright, so what we got here... So I'm going to turn the borders down to minimum border opacity. And we're going to take these little nodes and put them under here and turn their power off. I'm going to turn this one on and also turn the border opacity up with this first keyframe. Then we're going to stamp out another keyframe, and we're going to do the same process essentially with all three. And you may be wondering, how do we create a selector out of this process? I don't get it. Well, we'll see soon. I was very happy when I discovered this method because there's a lot of situations in which you want to select more than 10 things. It becomes a surprising hassle. Alright, I'm going to go over here and stamp out 2 nodes. And you'll see right and left on the D-pad are going to equate to minus and positive on the counter. Or subtract and add, I guess, whichever thing you want. So right is going to be add, and left is going to be subtract. So that's going to move us right to left, so to speak. And you'll see what I mean. With this count progress, it should work fine. Also, we're going to want our target value to be 3, so there's a maximum of 3 available. Should work really well if I've got this planned out properly. And we're going to stick that in the text microchip, which we're going to name text, just so we will be neat and tidy. And for our little pig fellow, we don't want him moving, so we're going to take a little thing like this, little keyframe, and turn off his ability to move. If we want a more stable thing to kind of use as a basis for our, what do you call it? We might want our little selector here to be right there. Or we could have it down here. Let's try putting it down here. It's kind of closer to the puppet. It's always going to be a little awkward when you have a separate menu, but... And we're going to have the touchpad act as our menu button. Just don't forget to let the player know that, you know, at some point if you're making a game like this. And we're going to take this keyframe, take the, well, should be the B output, stick it in here. And we're going to call this off. Could also shut off any UI that you happen to have. We don't have any right now, so not super necessary. Then we're going to want a camera. If you want to make this really visible, you might want to make a little chip. Set to play once, don't ever forget that. We're going to call it return, because it's basically the return camera. What do I mean by that? I mean that once we're not looking at the menu, we're going to want to cut back to the puppet. And to cut back to the puppet, you know, probably going to want something like this. The camera is set to cut directly behind him. It should work ample. Or amply, I should say. And we'll put it in there. And just put B. Well, wait a minute. Let's not get mixed up here. This is not a part of the experiment. We'll put A in here. And this does mean that when we start out the scene, we're gonna, you know, come from that view. But I think that's forgivable. So, touchpad. We're now in our inventory system. It's not exactly working as intended, as you can see. But there's a reason for this. One, we don't have this hooked up to minus, but also, let's go back and give this little look-see. And I'll show you what's going on in here, and the reason why when we press the arrow right, we're not seeing anything, you know, with our second input. And that's because you have to position these very exactly. That might be one of the few downsides, actually, to this method. Also, we may want to just make it 2 instead of 3. Oh, that's one thing I forgot to mention about the counter. You're always going to want to have one less input, because 0 in gaming terms is actually considered a number. Now that may sound a little bit ridiculous, but it is a fact that in programming, 0 is a value. So let's remember that. Alright, so we're going to want to put our second fellow in the middle. We're going to stretch this out just to make sure that the end is met. Alright. So basically all you would have to do to create a full timeline is create, you know, whatever number of inputs you want. 10, 11, 25, and just set the counter to 1 less. So if you have 25, set it to 24, because 0 is actually a number, technically, or a value, I should say. And so you would stretch this timeline out, put 25 keyframes on here, 25 blocks in whatever order you want, and that's a handy way to make more than 10. You know, more than 10 outputs, more than a selector, which I think is 10. Yes, it's 10 exactly. So there's a little handy tip. We're not going to do more than 10 because that would just lengthen this experiment unnecessarily, but just believe me, it can be done if you just do more of this. For the time being, though, we're going to set up something else. Alright. What are we going to do? Oh yes, we're going to turn down the opacity of this. And why are we doing that, you might ask? Well, we're going to do it because I want this character to be able to see what he's selecting. And you may be saying, well, why don't you just set these things to in scene? And it's true that I could set them to in scene, and I could just put the item I want in front of them, but I find it's generally better just to have them fixed to the camera. That way, if you have to make alterations, you just have to move the items and nothing else. we're going to go ahead and use this as a basis for selecting our item. Turning it on and off, if you will. There's our old crowbar input. Right over here. We're going to want to change it just a little bit. In this regard. On... Basically, let's see what this does. That makes it visible. Now, why do we want to just, you know, obfuscate this to a node? Well, there's a reason. What it amounts to is we're going to be turning this off because we want the variable to be active at all times so that it can maintain its value. But we don't want the ability to use the crowbar to always be active. And by creating this selection system, which by the way, you could set up a system where when you tap X on something, it equips it. But we're going to go with a much simpler, just hovering the cursor over the thing, equips. So as you can see, we currently have no crowbar. We go into our menu, select the crowbar. Oh, and we got to set a way to go back, of course. So to go back, we're just going to create a little input delay. Well, we'll get to that later, but touchpad on here. You could also make it circle if you wanted, but I'm going to go ahead with just double tapping the touchpad. Sets us back to square one. This is probably going to result in us doing what you just saw, which is a quick flip, so to speak. But there is indeed a way to fix this problem. Just take out a NOT gate, stick its output in restart time, and set it to sustain. And this little quick handy-dandy keyframe is going to temporarily shut off our controller sensor when it's active. If this works. Alright, that seems to be working. The only problem is now that we're here, we don't seem to be able to transition back. We got this set properly. Remote controllable. That's interesting. Alright. We don't seem to be going back. Let's check. Make sure everything is firing on all cylinders. Looks like we've got all the right wires. All the right wires are extending to where they're supposed to be. So what is the problem? Oh, I know what it is. It's simple. Because this controller is still active, we are having an issue where we can keep pressing the input over and over and over, basically restarting the menu over and over. But by just putting this here, just putting this little extra node, and switching it off with the off button, we can probably fix this issue. Well, we're also going to want an input delay again. We're going to want an input delay on both sides, ironically. So when we put the... where's the touchpad? Actually, let's just go and directly find where it connects. It connects over here, so... basically, whenever we touch this thing, it's going to create its own natural input delay. We might want to delete this just in case it's connected to something else and make a new keyframe. Alright, let's try this out. Yeah, we're still getting that problem, but I have a feeling I know why it is. It's because our dear friend here, the timeline, should be set to play once and not sustain. The reason why I set it to sustain earlier is because automatically when this chip is active, because of the NOT gate, it's going to reverse to the beginning of the timeline. And, you know, with power in there, it's going to naturally just play, as opposed to this thing, which we are triggering, so we want it to play once. We don't want it to set to sustain. Oh, well, we're still getting that problem. Alternatively, there is probably another way we could do this. Just have an input delay where it shuts off this fellow too. That's probably gonna work. And maybe we could go so far as to have an input delay that shuts off this. Just shut off everything and hopefully it'll work. Yes, that's how we want it. Just shut off all those inputs. And we're going to select our crowbar. And it's not showing up, so that's not exactly right. Oh, I know what it is. We don't have any... we don't have our variable active. Of course it wouldn't be working. There we go, we've selected our crowbar. And now we're running into a new issue. I want to go back to our menu, but it appears to be having a little bit of a hiccup. Well, there is a very simple way to solve this. I suppose by making it the same button we are to some degree complicating things. But there is another method. Let's go over here. I'm going to try this. Another way to simply solve it would just to be have a different button be the input, like circle. But we're going to try just shutting off the puppet's controller and see how that would work. Let's make sure the power is on. We'll call this off. A lot of things called off. Well, that doesn't really seem to help at all, so... yeah, it looks like we're gonna do it. We're gonna do the age-old thing. Here we go, everybody. We're gonna make it circle instead. It turns out maybe there's a reason to not use the same button. See, that works like clockwork. We may not even need the depossession angle. Let's get rid of this and see how it works. Yeah, this pretty much works perfectly. Forget what I said about using the same button. Use circle, or anything, honestly. Just don't use the same button. And of course, there is a way to do the same button, but I think it would be overly complex and probably just waste your time. Anyway, hopefully you found this helpful when constructing your inventory system. We're going to give a quick shout out to our monthly subscribers on Coffee. There they go. And that's all. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. If you wish to support our earnest insanity, you can check the links in the description to donate or buy merch. Until next time, goodbye.